And welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Just Parlay Show here at the Max Wagers Network. Apologies there with the opener. Forgot to jump everybody back in. But welcome.
It's okay.
Yep, it's July 20th, and we got a lot to talk about. Kinda, not really. Same thing as the last couple of days. We're going to go through some college football. We're going to go through a bunch of stuff. But I got to start off with introductions since it is a parlay show. Of course, I'm joined by the parlay expert, Chris King. Chris, how's it going with you?
Not too bad, Scott. How about yourself?
Doing pretty well. And also joining us is the man who knows everything about sports trivia, Jim Williams. Jim, how you doing?
I'm well, Scott. I'm well. And looking forward to talking ACC football today.
Yep, should be fun, but we got to quickly start off with what exactly happened yesterday. Not much, but there was an exhibition game that was nationally televised with a lot of interesting mid-game interviews and stuff like that. I feel like we could separate the actual game from the presentation. But the game itself, what do you guys think? The American League won. I'm shocked. You know, the National League wins. I'm just joking. The National League never wins. Feels like that's been the case for 20 years. What do you think of the game? Because we had a lot of action early on, and then you had no runs in about the last 5 innings.
I like what Fox did. I like the concept of miking the players. I like the interaction. I like the opportunity where pitchers could ask John Smoltz what to throw in this particular situation. So I thought from a production standpoint, I was pleased, and it was the first All-Star game in many moons that Joe Buck didn't do. So
I'm assuming you're anti-Buck from that.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying he's done different. So many in a row that it was just different to have a different voice, calling the games.
Yeah, I can agree with
but
that.
Schmaltz is, John is solid. John is as good an analyst as there is in the business, and he's always entertaining. But I thought they did well. I thought, Big Poppy showing up in the dugout there doing interviews was kind of fun. So yeah, I thought all in all, Fox did a nice job of producing the show.
Chris, what about you?
I just thought it was weird that Dusty Baker said that he's never seen Shane McClanahan pitch.
That was just funny, which is actually even funnier because he did face off against them, I believe, in the playoffs at some point. And yet Baker was just like, yeah, I don't know who this guy is, but he's starting, and ironically, he sucked. So I guess Baker didn't exactly need to see him pitch again because the first time that he actually saw him, it wasn't memorable. Yeah. That was enough. They called in somebody else to take his place, and they didn't really give up a run after that. So definitely an interesting game. Giancarlo Stanton won the MVP. I feel like it was warranted. He had a 2-run homer. He could have given it to Buxton for the go-ahead homer. You kind of had an argument either way. But of course, it's an exhibition, so it doesn't really matter. Do any of you guys have any theories as to why the National League just cannot win one of these damn things?
I don't know because talent-wise, there's not that much of a difference between the American League and the National League as far as talent goes. But I don't know. I mean, you would think that they would be able to do it, but they 9 years in a row is a long time to lose. And but then again, if you're I'd rather win the World Series than an All-Star game. But no, it's it was a good ball game for as long for the first 5 innings, and from that point on, it was pitching.
Well, the under was a great game for the final 5 innings, so it's all about perspective, right?
True, yeah.
And
Rye was like AL had a definitely better roster.
I think it did this year because, of course, you're looking at the likes of Tatis, for example, who would have easily been the starting shortstop, and he was injured. A couple of last-minute replacement guys who were unable to go for both sides. I think the AL is slightly better, but it's also baseball. This isn't like basketball where the better team's going to win like 80% of the time. Like you just need a couple of swings to go your way, and suddenly you're going to win a game. 9 straight. I mean, the National League has to have one of the longest losing streaks just based on either All-Star game history or even just this year, if you wanted to extrapolate it out. I mean, it's pretty difficult to lose 9 straight baseball games when you have a team full of All-Stars.
It is. And, we can say this year the AL had a better, roster, but that hasn't been the case for 9 years in a row. Yeah. So, I don't understand. I mean, All-Star games are weird. Baseball All-Star games, They're very streaky. There was a run from the 70s through the early 80s where the National League won all the games. Then the American League flipped the script again in the early 90s into the 2000s. So there's been that, but the dominating of 9 games in a row, again, it's you're sitting there going, that's just weird because the talent on both sides are not that much different. So Scott wants to know if Chris is building a cabinet in the background.
Not last I checked, but hey.
Things happen. But I don't know, Scott. I mean, it's a good question. But, we'll see come World Series time if one league's better than the other. We'll see it. But I think if you could, speaking of the All-Stars, you could pretty much have had, if the Dodgers were healthy, you could have just had the Dodgers rolled out there, and they probably would have done well.
Ironically, the Dodgers have the same payroll as the entire National League team, so you might want to look into that one. But still,
what do you think of the uniforms, guys? You like those monochrome uniforms?
I think they were fine. I actually kind of like it when they wore their own team's uniform. I thought that was pretty cool, especially since you don't have to worry about passing the ball to the other team. I mean, baseball is pretty simple. A lot of it's just instinctual. So I kind of like seeing a Yankee player in a Yankee jersey. You have a Phillies player in a Philly jersey. I kind of just like it. I think it's cool that way. I didn't think the jerseys were that bad. I'll tell you what, they're a lot better than the NBA All-Star Game jerseys.
Oh, God, yes.
And they're a lot better than the NBA Christmas Day jerseys because those are all-time bad every year. But for the most part, I thought it was fine. And I thought the game itself was pretty good. It didn't really matter, because it's an exhibition. But the Yankees jerseys I thought were nice, and I'm assuming we're in agreement that Stanton probably deserved the MVP because he had the 2-run homer.
Sure. So. I mean, that's it.
I think that at this point the All-Star game has become basically a pointless exhibition, just like every other the Pro Bowl and everything else, because that's not the way anybody plays the game now.
I didn't check
not
the
like
ratings,
the old days.
I was going to say I didn't check the ratings.
I don't know if it's out yet. Is it?
I don't think they
are.
The
overnights aren't yet, but I would look. Here's the funny thing about the way television ratings work. They'll come out and say that the ratings are up or down, whatever. Let's say they're down 5% from last year. Fox still won the night. And that's the fun. I mean, the point that if you own the network that owns the World Series and the All-Star Game, or for whatever the NBA playoffs, whatever they are, 9 times out of 10 you're going to win every night that one of those games are on. So even though it may be up or down, it doesn't matter. The goal of the network is to win the night, and Fox won the night last night. How much, we'll see, but at the end of the day, the goal in any championship or all-star or whatever is to win the night. Yeah. And so Fox will have won the night. ESPN probably got better ratings than perhaps even the All-Star game with the Home Run Derby on Monday night. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, to push back a little bit, since I do agree with you about the idea of winning the night, a lot of it had to do with a lack of competition because there was literally nothing else on in sports last night.
Sure.
The World Series is tricky to fully analyze, though, because it's usually taking place during basketball season, or hell, even if they have a Sunday World Series game, you're against football, and the World Series ratings are going to get killed.
Well, only on the nights when they play, like you said, a Sunday Night Football. Otherwise, you look at year in and year out, the World Series always wins.
Yeah.
And so, granted, if you get if you're up against Sunday Night Football, you're probably going to lose that night.
And some of it's out of your control depending on what teams are in there. No offense to the Tampa Bay Rays, but I'm assuming if they were in it, the ratings would be lower because most people don't care about Tampa. So
this just in from our reporter, Mr. Steen, who is showing the MLB All-Star Game 26 point. I can't quite read that, but basically
they got a 1.2 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic.
Okay.
So,
6.2 million viewers. So it slightly beat America's Got Talent, or what I call America Has No Talent, so we import people from other countries to put them on the show.
I prefer to call that show Singer's Got Talent, because a singer's going to win it in the end.
True.
I like to call the show a waste of time.
That's fair. I don't watch it, but I know a singer with a sob story wins about 80% of the time, so I don't really watch it.
This is true.
There you go.
Either way, you guys have any other final takeaways for the All-Star game?
No, tonight's
Thankfully,
Steph
it's
Curry.
over.
Yeah,
Okay.
tonight's Steph Curry and the ESPYs. So.
I think the weird part, though, one brief thing that I forgot to mention before, I liked the Big Papi interview stuff, but during Miguel Cabrera's at bat, I thought the timing was a little weird. Didn't you guys think it was a little weird?
Yeah, normally you don't want to talk to somebody when they're swinging the bat. Yeah, that's a.
Well, besides the fact it's Miguel Cabrera, I'm assuming he might be
True.
in the All-Star game next year if they want to do a legacy thing too.
Sure.
But he was in it this year, and I feel like if you were going to kind of match him up with Pujols as the veteran spot, maybe you shouldn't do the interview during his only at-bat of the game. So I thought that timing was a little bit odd. But I do agree with you as a whole, Jim. I thought the presentation was nice. I thought they did a good job with it. The thing about the All-Star game is you get to experiment. And not even just the players doing random stuff, but I mean the actual presentation, having players mic'd up while they're pitching, having outfielders mic'd up. Really, it's just a good testing ground to try new things for production that they might be able to deploy in the playoffs or during the regular season.
Putting a helmet cam on the catcher they've done in the past.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
So they've got, you can, like you say, you can mess around with stuff that you never would be able to mess around with in a game that actually meant something.
Yeah, Steen also seemed to be a big fan of the pitchers being mic'd up. I thought it was funny that Smoltz told him to throw an off-speed pitch and Manoah hit the guy. I thought that was kind of funny. But either way, I think it's time to transition over to today's card. Just kidding. We have absolutely nothing to talk about. You got the ESPYs on, so get excited. I'm sure Chris is thrilled to watch not only a meaningless award show, but a meaningless sports award show. Isn't that something?
Yeah, I tend to avoid those because I see no purpose in seeing. The last time I watched the ESPYs was when Phil Vano was on, and that was an eternity ago.
I think the best host was still Justin Timberlake, and that was like 15 years ago.
Been a while.
It's been a while. I thought Peyton Manning actually did a decent job, but usually you see the clips. You're not there for the awards. You're there to just see which athletes get roasted in the opening monologue. That's kind of the only reason why people watch it. But either way, time to move on to the fun stuff. But before we do all that, we are going to talk about BetMGM, because they still have a great deal for you for first-time users for their app or website. Get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. All of the information is in the show box. Check the age limits. Some states let you do it when you're 18. Others let you do it when you're 21. And, of course, as always, bet responsibly. But time to continue our conference previews for the college football season. And we're going to go through the ACC. And, in fact, we have so many teams listed, we have two banners. We're going to have to figure out a way to do this. But starting off with the favorites, of course, Clemson, who surprisingly did not win it last year and was not even in the conference title game. So a definite bad year for Clemson. But they're favored. They're laying minus 120. Win total there is 10.5. You have Pitt at roughly plus 850. I saw Miami at 6-1. And if you want to also look at NC State, I believe they were around plus 750. So starting off with you, Chris, who are you picking to win the conference and why?
I think the best team in the conference is not Clemson, even though I hear about it every friggin' day on sports talk radio. That's the curse of living 30 minutes away. Clemson's offense, not good. We saw Uiagalelei struggle all last season. They tried to run the ball, but, that's only going to get you so far. And they lost a lot of guys on defense. Skalski's gone. Bailey Spector's gone. Ford is gone. I'm going to go with NC State. Devin Leary's back. Dave Doran has done a good job with that program. And the Wolfpack, they beat Clemson, I'm pretty sure, last year. And what was it, triple overtime?
They did. A lot of really, really bad kicking performances in that game.
Well, but if you look at Clemson's But if you look at Clemson's offense last year, I'm just saying, they scored, 20 points or less 5 times, and then they scored 20 in the Cheez-It Bowl against Iowa State, a team that we talked about how much you loved Brock Purdy yesterday. Yeah. They got by on that, but defense, they're just not going to – I don't think Clemson's going to be as good as everybody wants to talk about. I think the Wolfpack is a better team.
Well, I do want to point out one thing since Steen is in the audience. I did learn the actual pronunciation for Clemson's quarterback. He was giving me crap for it last year. Uiagalelei, so that's for you, Steen. I learned that just on your behalf. But he was awful last year.
Interesting, because down here they just call him Ualagale.
You can just call him bad if you want to. I mean, he wasn't very good
I just
last
call
year.
him the guy that's not Deshaun Watson or Taj Boyd or Trevor Lawrence or
Yeah, that works too. But I was going to say, when your best performance in college occurred when you were a backup, that's not exactly good because he was a starter last year and he was atrocious. And of course, his main moment was against Notre Dame as the backup who was filling in for Lawrence when he was injured. And that ended up resulting in him having a huge performance on primetime TV. But, Jim, I'm going to ask you, do you want to make a case for Clemson or you also like NC State?
I like the Miami.
Okay.
I like Tyler Van Dyke, who's back at quarterback. He went 7 games last year without a turnover. Miami was undefeated in the ACC play last year. I think that I like Mario Cristobal. In total transparency, he's a personal friend. I've known him for all the way back to the time he was at the U. They've got some really good assistant coaches. Kevin Steele's going to call the offensive plays. Charlie Strong is going to be the defensive guy. They sunk a lot of money into the Miami program. And, I talked to a couple of people. Jack Healy, who's a friend of the program, Jack, was telling me that down in Miami right now, the excitement is all Hurricanes. It's no Dolphins. And they're hoping that the U is back. We'll see, but I do like the U. I think that they've got a solid football team, and I think that when you got Kevin Steele, who's calling your offensive plays, and you got Charlie Strong, who's got the defense, they've invested a lot of money. They brought the AD in from Clemson, so there's a lot of cash that's floating around there, and they got the NIL money. So for now, I'm going to be a homer and say that the Hurricanes.
I think just to correct you, Jim, Steele's the defensive coordinator.
Oh, I thought Charlie was the defensive coordinator.
No, I don't see Charlie Strong listed on here. They've got Josh Gaddis as the offensive coordinator, according to everything I'm reading.
It's a trick question. Charlie Strong is the co-defensive coordinator.
Oh,
there you go.
And the linebackers coach. So I guess they split up the
responsibility. And that's right, Sledgehammer. I don't watch America's Got ESPYs, and soy sauce. I can pronounce Alcantara just fine.
But either way.
Yeah, Andrew's talking about Dabo Swinney being 61-16 in the ACC. There's nobody's arguing that Dabo Swinney in Clemson has been good. It's just what have you done for me lately?
Yeah, and of course,
when you're beating Georgia Tech and Syracuse every year, it's easy to get a good record.
I also think it's worth mentioning, though, if you want to push back on Dabo's record, if the main concern last year was the offense, particularly the quarterback,
right,
and you brought the same quarterback back without even trying the transfer portal, I find it a little bit odd that Clemson didn't go for a quick fix. Hell, I mean, we talked about how, if you want to look around, Nebraska went for a new quarterback.
Right.
Even Pitt went for a new quarterback. They got Slovis. There's options out there. And even if you think that Uiagalelei could figure it out and become a solid quarterback, it's still a big gamble. And even the backup is pretty much an unproven commodity. I'm a little bit surprised that Clemson didn't even try to at least address a quarterback depth piece, worst case scenario, in the transfer portal. Does that surprise you at all?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's Clemson. You would think that that they wouldn't have any trouble grabbing somebody out of the portal and doing well with them. But from what I understand, there wasn't even anybody, and you guys could, if you know better on this, let me know. But I've monitored it. I didn't see Clemson even try to get a big, because there were some names out there they could have gotten who might very well have fit that offense. Justin Dart, the kid who was at SC, might have been a good quarterback for the way Dabo runs his offense. But
that's why I brought it up. I mean, even if you're anti-Adrian Martinez or you're anti-Casey Thompson, they changed schools. I'm sure if Clemson would have asked, they probably would have chosen Clemson because that's clearly the best program that would have offered them a spot. And even if you don't like them as quarterbacks, I don't think many people actually like the current quarterback for Clemson, and you could have had a QB competition out of it. So that's why I think it's a little weird. But I will push back a little bit on Miami.
Okay.
Usually, I tend to wait a year with a brand new coach and a brand new system.
Sure.
Now, of course, we talked about the Big 12 yesterday. Didn't apply to Dave Aranda because he won in his first year.
Right.
But usually, there's some growing pains involved.
Sure.
And we know that with all the new coordinators and all of the talent that either came into Miami or left because they're really inexperienced at wide receiver after Rambo and Harley left, their defensive line has some question marks. I do like Van Dyke as a quarterback, but the rest of their offense I'm really not that sold on. Like the ground game I think is okay. The wide receivers are okay, I guess. The schedule's not bad. They do play Clemson on the road, which should not be a fun time. But I do think that Miami might be a year away from potentially winning a conference title. They might make it to the conference title game, but I'm not picking them to win the conference because I do think they might need a year to fully implement the system.
This might be my prejudice again with Mario Cristobal. Okay, your points are all well taken. There's no question about any of those points. But I like the trajectory that Miami's on.
Yeah.
They've decided, we're going to go balls to the wall. We're going to spend money. We're going to do whatever it takes to get back to the good old days. So, whether it happens or not, we'll find out. But at the end of the day, I think it'll be fun. I think it's not going to be a waltz. I don't think there's a real favorite, honestly, in the ACC. Any one or three teams or four teams could walk away with that.
I think that's that's the pushback for Clemson. Where even if you like Clemson and you think that they should win the conference, do you really want to lay -120? Probably not.
No.
So I would personally pick Clemson if I had to pick one team to win the conference, just because I know you mentioned, Chris, how they're missing a couple of pieces from the defense last year. I'm still a big fan of the
Quite a
defensive
few.
line. I was going to say, I still really like that defensive line. I think that they should be able to dominate up front. And I still like the ground game. Even though the quarterback situation was awful last year, they still won a lot of games. For most teams that have terrible quarterbacks, they actually did decently. Not good enough to win the conference, of course, but I do think that.
But how much of that is because the ACC is terrible? I mean, they scored 14 points on Georgia Tech.
But I'm going to ask you, though, how good is the ACC this year? You could argue that it's better because Miami should be better, and we agree that NC State has a shot to win the conference. But, I mean, Clemson...
Wake is still a good football team,
It's still not bad. I wouldn't say Pitt went down too bad.
Yeah, we got to talk about Pitt for a second, though, because the odds do suggest that they have a shot to win the conference. I don't think Pitt has a shot to win the conference. Congrats to them last year, but I can't pick them because you lose Pickett, you're replacing with Slovis. I've never been a Slovis guy. I thought that his arm talent at USC was relatively weak.
Right.
And if you want to talk about the wide receivers, they lost their best receiver. They lost Addison. So
yeah, losing Jordan Addison is terrible for Pitt because.
Are you a fan of Narduzzi? Because I feel like a lot of people, even with good results, don't exactly like him as a head coach.
I'm not a fan of him myself. And like you said, losing Addison is a big blow for Pitt because now you've got a new quarterback and you just lost the Biletnikoff winner from last season. Who's he going to throw to? Are you trusting Jared Wayne?
Also,
I personally am not.
Yeah. You also lost the first quarterback selected in this past year's draft. So it's
True.
Not exactly a great situation for Pitt. I think they're going to underachieve, and Marlowe's on the same page. I think Pitt might win 7 games, but people are expecting them to win 9 or 10. The schedule is not terrible, which I guess goes in their favor. I just don't know how you can lose that many key pieces to the offense and just expect to hit the ground running when I saw Slovis in a very offensive-friendly system at USC with Graham Harrell, and the Pac-12 also wasn't very deep. And Slovis, A, didn't look great, B, got injured all the time. So I'm not sold on Pitt. I do like NC State for the value. If I was picking one value play, it would be NC State because even for confidence, they did beat Clemson last year. Right. I'm not saying they're going to beat them again this year, but it's been done. And NC State brings a lot of guys back. Leary's a very solid quarterback. And the defense
35
is very
touchdowns last season.
Yeah, he's good. The ground game is a little bit unproven. They did lose a couple of running backs, but the receiver core is decent. The defense is very experienced, and they battled a bunch of injuries last year. And they have good special teams. So if you want to go for a team that could break through at a good plus price, NC State at around 9-1, I think, is a very solid play.
Scott, there's on the panel of the first, the first wave, I guess we would call it, of the ACC, is not Florida State University. And Rye was talking about FSU is going to be surprised this year. Let me say this: if they don't, Mike Norvell will not be surprised that he will not be the coach at Florida State the following year.
I'm so annoyed they didn't sign Deion Sanders, or hire Deion Sanders.
Deion will probably be the next coach at Florida State.
Just saying, I feel like he was the perfect slam dunk hire before NIL stuff because, I mean, can you think of a better recruiter than Deion Sanders if you would walk into a building? Probably not.
No.
So I would have gone with him. Norvell, I don't think he's a good coach. I can't say it's fully his fault. I mean, he was at a Group 5 school, did well at Memphis, and then he tried to make the leap. It's kind of like what happened with Charlie Strong making the leap to Texas after he was successful previously, and some people just can't handle it. And it seemed like he was a little bit above his skis, and it didn't work out. But Florida State, my question for you guys when it comes to surprising, what's considered an overachieving season for Florida State? Like 8 wins? Is that a good year for Florida State?
I would say 8 or 9. I mean, they've got to go north of 7 or Norville's gone. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Looking at the schedule, I'd say probably 8 wins would probably be overachieving. I mean, after we watched them lose to Jacksonville State last year on a Hail Mary, can you even trust them against Duquesne?
I don't think you can trust. I mean, look, I'm somebody who goes all the way.
Anybody.
I go all the way back to the early Bowden days at Florida State, and I've seen a lot of games at Doak Campbell Stadium, and I can tell you that it's just not they want to recapture that kind of and when Jimbo was there, they want to recapture that kind of the winning. And the only thing, to Scott's point, the only thing that's going to do that and get the light back on you is to hire somebody like Deion. And I think that'll be an interesting hire. Deion is more of a CEO than he is. Scott, you're right from a standpoint. He recruits the heck out of you. He brings you on. His game coaching, I'm not so sure about at this point, but he can surround himself with some good coordinators. And if they can get the talent in, which I think Deion could recruit, that's going to help because Norvell has not recruited well.
And I feel like that's a big reason why people think USC is going to be very good, or why Cristobal and you think he's going to be very good. It's not always about the X's and O's.
Right.
It's about getting the local talent to your school.
Right.
And with Norvell, Florida State's been atrocious in recruiting. Right. And when you're competing against Miami now, of course, because Cristobal's a good recruiter, and Florida who's always
Billy Napier's a great recruiter.
I was going to say, so you're going to have your work cut out for you, but Deion is going to get first dibs on any recruit he wants. So I think if you're going to be competing in the most competitive state, besides maybe Texas, for recruits, then I do think you're going to be looking at Deion, but that's why I'm kind of throwing Florida State out. A good season, in my opinion, is about 8-9 wins. That's not good enough to win you the conference. So I'm tossing Florida State out. I'm tossing North Carolina out. You're not going to lose Sam Howell and find a way.
Yeah, they're a team in transition for sure.
Yeah, you're not going to lose that many big pieces.
There's one thing, guys, that we have to also look at. And we now know that we've got the Big Ten and the SEC is going to be paid a lot of money. What happens in situations like the Big 12 now, the ACC now, and what may be the Pac-12 for a week or two, is that you can't afford to make a bad coaching hire.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that kind of money. You don't have the $60 million or the $70 million that you're going to get in the SEC or the ACC, where you can buy a guy out of his contract and then go forward into the next guy. So there are coaches and teams where a Mike Norvell might be they might have fired him last year, okay, but they can't because Florida State is at a point where they can't buy him out of that contract because it's just not cost effective for them to do it.
Yeah, you need the boosters to raise a bunch of money in order for you to actually consider getting rid of him.
To pull it on that, yeah.
I thought the Norvell hire when it happened was just uninspiring. It's one thing if you want to hire a top-tier coordinator, a guy at a big school. For example, I'm not going to say they would have hired him, but like a Venables, a proven guy who succeeded at big programs.
Right.
It's very different to jump from Memphis to the ACC. That's all I'm saying. So
if they were smart, and the FSU people weren't at the time, and they probably wouldn't have done it. But I would have at the time. I was saying Lane Kiffin, because Lane is a hell of a recruiter. He's a great offensive person, and he would have. And he's one of the best follows on Twitter. I mean,
he's also experienced in Florida because he was working at Atlantic, so he's familiar with the area. I would have gone Dion. At some point, since I actually root for Florida State, the issue for me is recruiting. And Florida State, really, since Jimbo left, has been atrocious in recruiting. And I simply think that if you want to talk about what they should have done, they should have put all the. I know that it's an unproven option with Dion, but you kind of prove my point. Dion could be a CEO type of coach.
Right.
You let the coordinators do their thing. You let Dion teach the secondary if he wants to.
Right.
And then you also let him recruit. And I feel like if you wanted to truly compete, and you mentioned the goal of being a top-tier, reclaiming former glory type of situation for Florida State, Dion was the best candidate for me that would have helped you recapture some of that glory as quickly as possible instead of an uninspiring group of 5 hire from a firm where you tried to find the best candidates and you picked somebody. I would have gone with Dion. Dion's been pretty good at Jackson State. Now, once again, it's a completely different animal because that's, FCS, but he's recruited very well. He's stolen a couple of top 10 guys. And that
he took one from FSU.
I was going to say, he took one from FSU. Didn't Nick Saban make a big deal at a press conference for Jackson State?
Yeah.
And he claimed that it was like NIL issues, and I'm like, that's a little bit weird that you're of all people going to make that argument. But
Dion loved it because, when you got Saban saying that you're taking big time players out, off the board.
Yeah.
That's okay with him.
And it's free publicity for an FCS school that would have never gotten the publicity. But I would have gone Dion. I still think he's on the cards once they get rid of Norvell. I guess what I'm asking, though, is if we said that 8 or 9 wins is going to be the ceiling, what is the record that gets Norvell fired, hypothetically, after this year? Missing a bowl game?
I think under 500, he'll probably be a dead man walking.
I don't think he can go to a bowl. If they don't win north of 7 games, he's gone. And even if they win 8, he might be gone. I think this is the last year. I have to check. I think it's the last year. Is he on a 4 or 5 year contract?
Norvell, it's about 4 or 5 years too long.
Okay.
Not going to work here anymore.
He's going into the 4th year of his contract. So
yeah, there would have to be some form of a buyout if they wanted to get rid of him a year early.
But that buyout's going to be cheap.
Yeah, or they could just swallow it and bring him back for one more year or so and hope that he's gone and Dion's available. But Andrew's bringing up Wake Forest. Of course, Wake Forest had a great year. Unfortunately, they kind of fell apart in the title game as Hartman threw a bunch of picks and got benched. But 11-3 last year, beat NC State in that very thrilling game where if you had the over, you cashed in basically the first half. But for that actual team, do any of you want to make a case for Wake Forest? Because Hartman's a quarterback that I like, but there's way too many mistakes, and I feel like he's going to burn them a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, he threw, 14 interceptions last year, and their defense was not that good, and that's going to be their big issue. That was their problem last year. Sure, they beat North Carolina State, but they gave up 42 points in that one. They gave up 58 the week before to North Carolina. Are they going to be able to stop anybody? Because you're not going to score 50 points a week, even in the ACC. Wake Forest would be better suited to play in the Big 12 with their style of scoring than, forget to play defense. I just don't think that they have the defensive pieces to win 11 games again. I mean, I like Dave Clawson. He's a good coach, but they need some defensive playmakers.
They definitely do. I still remember the game against Navy where they won, but they gave up 56 points. Against Army, sorry. They won 70-56.
Oh, yeah, that's 70-56 or whatever.
Yeah. But if you want to look at the scores there, I mean, you got yourself some really, really bad defensive performances. I mean, every single game they played, they basically scored 35 offensively. Almost every game. So they're great offensively. Defensively, though, I mean, they gave up 34 to Louisville. They gave up 37 to Syracuse, and Syracuse, I know it went to overtime, but Syracuse is not a good football team. 56 to Army. Gave up
58
to North Carolina. Like
48 to Clemson, who didn't
48
score.
to Clemson. Yeah, Clemson's offense was awful last year. So even though Wake Forest, I like the offense, I love the overs in their games. If they're going to be below 85, I'll take the over on some of their games. But for wins, when you mix a bad defense with a quarterback that's a little bit turnover prone from time to time, I think they're going to lose a couple of games they should win, and I'm not going to pick them to win the conference as a result.
What do you think of Stoops in North Carolina? I mean, look at they're on that line, the good luck line.
They lost the best quarterback they've had in several decades?
Yeah.
Like, I can't just assume they're going to hit the ground running with a new quarterback. And, I mean, you want to look at who the quarterback is. Right now, you have Drake May as the listed quarterback, and he's a freshman. So you're going from Howell, who's arguably your most accomplished quarterback in the program's history, to a guy with no experience at all. That's usually a red flag. Now, it might work because Howell was a freshman, and he was unbelievable when he just showed up at North Carolina with Mac Brown as the coach. But I don't know how many times you can strike lightning with a freshman quarterback and just expect to hit the ground running. I don't see it, in my opinion. I think they'll win 7 games. And Stoops is a defensive guy, so their emphasis is on defense. The offense, surprised, as you said, they had a once in a generation for them quarterback. Yeah. So I don't.
Are you talking? Do you mean Gene Chizik? Because Chizik is the D coordinator there now in North Carolina.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I'm talking about Stoops being the head coach is more of a defensive minded guy.
Mac Brown's the coach at North Carolina.
But if Stoops were the coach at North Carolina,
so if he was, okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking Kentucky. I'm in the wrong conference. Oh, my bad. You're right, Mac Brown. God, that was.
It's fine. That happens.
Total brain issue.
I was just getting crossed up. That's why I was making sure that we were talking about the same guy.
Right. No, you're right. You're right.
You said Stoops, and I was thinking, is there a third brother that might be the defensive coordinator?
No. It's just it was blue and white.
It's Joe Bob Stoops.
Joe Bob, yeah. David Stoops.
But I mean, who do we think is the worst team in the conference? Is it Syracuse? Is it Duke? Is it Georgia Tech? Is it Virginia Tech now? Because they've got a new coach and a new quarterback and I don't think it's Virginia Tech, though.
Virginia Tech doesn't bother me. I don't think they're a great team, but if they won 6 games, would I be shocked? No. I think it's Duke. I think Duke's just a terrible football team. During the college football season, I was roasting Cutcliffe the entire year because I thought he was a terrible coach, and they lost the opener to Charlotte, and I'm like, all right, so this is really going to be a bad team. Then Cutcliffe got fired. Is there anything to like about this Duke team? Because I think that this team is just awful.
No, it's to quote Chris, it's a dumpster fire.
Georgia Tech's not going to be good either, but I'm just looking at what Duke has or what they don't have. I mean, I guess the good part is they play Temple, Northwestern, and North Carolina A&T, and then Kansas. So they might actually start off 4-0 with arguably the worst 4 opponents, consecutively in the entire country.
Don't sleep on Kansas. Kansas might beat them.
Kansas might beat them, but I'm saying if you're looking at a win total for Duke, that might be decided in the first 2 weeks of the season because those 4 opponents are as easy as they come, but in conference play, they will get absolutely killed in virtually every game.
Let me ask you guys something.
Yeah, Virginia, then at Georgia Tech, then North Carolina, then at Miami, at BC, then Virginia Tech, then at Pitt, and then they close against Wake Forest.
You said Georgia Tech,
on the plus side, at least they have Clemson.
It's at Georgia Tech. So even in the game against arguably the second worst team in the conference, they're going to lose on the road. But they really might just win every out-of-conference game or lose to Northwestern or some team along the way. In conference play, you should just fade Duke entirely. This team is going to get absolutely demolished.
You know who's having trouble?
The plus side, they don't get Clemson all those guys, but they don't get Syracuse either. So
The thing that, to me, that I've seen in the past 4 or 5 years trending in the ACC is Syracuse's inability to recruit anybody. And I don't know if that's because they play – it's hard. I've talked to a lot of people who graduated from Syracuse who are just so sick of playing in the ACC. They hearken for the days gone by when they used to play Penn State and when they used to play Miami and when they used to play all of the at the time, independent schools. And they just aren't juiced at all about playing in the ACC. So, the Carrier Dome doesn't get sold out, and to them, Syracuse football is just biding its time to basketball season.
I mean, how are you supposed to be excited about your mascot being in orange? just saying, it's not exactly a good.
Used
pump
to be in the day,
mascot,
yeah.
But Syracuse is a team that I can't say is really in transition. They're kind of just there. You know what I mean? Like they're usually hovering between 4 and 7 wins almost every year. That's kind of
500 team, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's usually where they are. So I'm not going to say they're the worst team in the conference, but am I picking them to go to a bowl game? Maybe, but if they are, they're going to have to sneak in. There's a couple of teams, even just based on reputation and not even looking at the schedule, that it's going to come down to probably the last week of the regular season if they make it to a bowl game or not.
That's Louisville.
Syracuse is one of those teams.
Yeah, I think Louisville's another one.
Louisville's interesting because I really don't know what to think of that team because they put all of their eggs in the mobile quarterback basket.
Right.
It just seems like none of their mobile quarterbacks can actually throw. I mean, that's kind of a concern that I have with them. And are you a fan of their head coach? Are you not a fan of the head coach? Because I feel like it's a pretty mediocre coaching staff.
Yeah, and it's the irony is of all the teams in the in the ACC, Louisville usually has the highest budget from a standpoint of what they bring in. Louisville cashes a lot of checks, so they should be better served than what they're being served by at this point in time.
I'm just trying to think of what exactly the team success is going to come down to, and I feel you can just say straight up, is it going to come down to Malik Cunningham? Because I don't think he's a great quarterback. Of course, he's very dynamic, which is definitely, his physical tools. But he's put up some huge numbers, and they've still lost.
Right.
Like, the defense isn't good enough or consistent enough, and Cunningham isn't a good enough thrower to consistently upset teams. So you can look at Louisville last year, and they were not great. I mean, they're not a very good team, but if they go 6-6, would I be shocked? No. Would it fully surprise me if the final game of the season against Kentucky determines if they go to a bowl game or not? It would not surprise me. But if you're asking me if I think right now Louisville's going to go to a bowl game, I'm not so sure. Now, they do have a game in November against James Madison.
Right.
So maybe they could win that one, and that might help them. But
don't sleep on James Madison, though. Duke plays some pretty good football down there in the FCS.
The team's not bad, but Louisville's at home, so I'm assuming Louisville will win that game. But I bring up the James Madison game because their final 3 games of the season, at Clemson, at home against NC State, at Kentucky. So that James Madison game might actually determine everything when it comes to actually making a bowl game.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they're going to make
it. On the plus side, they open with at Syracuse and then at UCF, and then they get Florida State and Jim's alma mater, the South Florida Doormats, to close out September.
South Florida will beat Syracuse.
Just saying, though, the point is, when it comes to schedules,
they'll beat Louisville.
Louisville's bowl game hopes will be determined in the first 4 weeks of the season. I think they basically need to run the table.
That's a fair statement.
I brought up James Madison because the final 3 games are Murderer's Row, so you kind of have to try to beat James Madison if you want a shot there to make a bowl game. But
so Louisville and Duke are in the same boat, right? Because you said Duke's first 4 games, they might end up being.
They're in the same boat based on how easy the
3-0 or 4 or 3-1 or 4-0, but I don't think they'll win anything else.
That's what I was going to say. Is that they're in the same boat based on how easy the front of the schedule is and how difficult the back is.
Front loaded, yeah.
But Duke, even if they sweep all the games, as Chris just said, there's no chance they're going to a bowl game. Like, that team is awful. They're going to lose pretty much every conference game. Louisville will probably go slightly below 500 in conference play, but you can make a case for 500.
Right.
Duke might actually go over. That's the
difference. They were 0-8 last year in the conference. So,
and I think this team's worse.
Is this another year, guys? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the Blue Devils lost, let's see, out of those 8 conference games, they lost 7 of them by at least 31 points.
That's not good.
Their one close game was the loss to Georgia Tech that they lost 31-27 in Durham.
And you can make the case that this team is worse than last year's team. So once again, if you want to make money during football season, fade Duke during the conference schedule. They're going to get killed.
Quick question to you guys: Is there any way an ACC team makes a playoff?
Clemson's
Do you see
the
any
only
team?
hope for
Do you
me.
see any of these teams making a playoff?
Clemson's the only hope for me. I think you can make a case, maybe NC State, but I mean they're going for the first 10-win season in eternity. So I don't think they're going to run the table. NC State. I think you need a team to run the table, and it's not like it's not like the SEC where they usually get 2 teams in, no matter how many losses each team has, just based on reputation. But I think Clemson's the only hope for them, and that's assuming Clemson either runs the table or loses very, very early on into the season and then runs the table afterwards. But no. But if you want to talk about Clemson's schedule, the issue is they don't have a game where they could afford to lose. Like last year, for example, if they lost to Georgia and they ran the table, they might have made the playoff.
Maybe.
But this year, you play Georgia Tech, you play Furman, you play Louisiana Tech. So no, they don't have.
Everybody's real excited about that matchup with Furman down here because the Paladins, the other school within like 20 minutes of here. So I'm sure it'll be real exciting to set the state on fire for that one.
It's better than South Carolina State, but still, the point is they don't have an out of conference game where if they lose, they still have a shot because there's an excuse built in.
Right.
So no, I think the only hope they have for a playoff team is Clemson running the table. You?
Yeah, I agree. I just any team running the table. I just don't. There's not a lot of depth in the ACC from the standpoint of quality. There's a lot of mediocrity.
You said Miami. If Miami would hypothetically run the table, maybe they have a shot.
Yeah, they would have the name recognition, and people would definitely look at that and say, okay, let's go for it.
The issue is I'm not picking Miami to run the table. That's the point.
Yeah, and to get there, they'd have to beat Jimbo Fisher in College Station in mid-September.
That wouldn't make me very happy, but I don't think it would make Jimbo very happy.
Does an undefeated NC State team actually make it to the playoff, or are they such a smaller school based on reputation that they would get booted?
I think it would depend on who they beat in the conference title game. If they beat a Clemson or somebody like that, somebody with some name value. But if you get some team like Pitt that limps in there, or God forbid, some of these other doormat teams we were just talking about, they're just going to look there. Oh, look, they beat the team rated 87th in the PI.
Well, Jim, sorry, I just have to correct.
Go ahead.
I have to correct Chris for a second. They can't play Clemson in the conference title game because they're in the same division.
No, that's true. Yeah, because they're both in the Atlantic.
So they would have to play a Miami best case scenario.
The top 2 teams.
Yeah. Miami would be best case scenario for them if they wanted to have a statement winning the conference title. But once again, since you can't beat Clemson twice, that's going to hurt them, isn't it?
Well, 100%.
Yeah, I would say so.
And, the other thing too is you've got to factor in. Okay, the SEC and the Big Ten. Are they going to get 2 teams in, or one of the conferences going to get 2 teams in? And what's coming out of the Big 12? I mean, is there going to be somebody like a Baylor, or like we talked about yesterday? Who's coming out of there who could very well Oklahoma? You may have a undefeated team like North Carolina State come out and they're on reputation alone, as you said, not make the playoffs only because they're bigger names, bigger brands out there.
Well, we know there's only going to be one.
Oh, go ahead, Scott.
There's going to be one Big Ten team that gets in, and it's probably going to be Ohio State. So if you want to do process of elimination here, ACC will push back for a second. Pac-12 probably 0.
Yeah.
So I think we can agree on that. Unless USC runs the table, I don't think they're going to get a team in. I thought the Big 12 was down this year. I don't think there's going to be an undefeated team coming out of the Big 12. So I guess you can toss them out. So on process of elimination, if NC State would run the table, they might actually have to get a spot at the table because there's really not enough good alternatives. Unless you get a Cincinnati again and you want to see another group of 5 school get in, but I don't see that happening. So I guess to kind of counter my initial point, NC State might have a path if it goes undefeated if all the other conferences that we think are going to be down in the Power 5 are actually down. And I don't like the Pac-12. I'm not a big fan of the Big 12 either.
And don't forget Notre Dame.
And Notre Dame, which you never know what they're up to. So, yeah, that's also a fair point.
Yeah. So we'll see.
We'll see. Any other points you guys want to add, or should we just wrap it up?
Nah, we're good. I'm good.
Okay.
No, we're good.
Chris. Cool. Just a quick reminder for everyone else. We're going back to parlays tomorrow. So get excited. We got baseball. So I'm sure Chris has a couple of parlays set up, or he's going to.
Yeah,
so
there's like a whole, 6 or 7 games.
That's 6 or 7 more than we have today. So you got,
Right.
I'm more of a glass half full kind of guy. So just
There you
keep that
go.
in mind.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at, you're looking, nobody has pitching matchups yet because nobody wants to tell you who they're going to start.
Yeah, you also got
So,
a double
I know,
in there. So
yeah, Houston's going to throw Javier and Garcia. Have you heard anything about who the Yankees are going to throw? I've seen Tyone mentioned in one game, but I don't know who's they're going to bring out for the other one.
did Garrett Cole pitch last night or no?
I don't think he did.
No,
I know he was
don't
in
think
the
so.
dugout because they had him mic'd up. I wasn't sure
Yeah.
if he pitched or not.
I don't think so.
Okay, so he might end up pitching. We'll see.
Maybe.
I mean, out of the 7 games, there's 6 games. My mistake. Out of the 6 games, there's one game that has a pitching matchup right now, and that's Texas and the Marlins, which will have started by the time we start this show. So basically, there's 4 games left.
Right.
Because
Chris,
the
I
Yankees
trust
and
you.
Houston,
You're the parlay guy. You'll have 17 different player props in the boxcar. I already know how you do it. So I'm sure we'll have something. But
And James wants to fill us in the comments.
it makes it difficult when you've got 4 games to work with.
yeah, definitely true. But hopefully by the time we record tomorrow, we'll have at least more strong knowledge on who's actually going to be pitching. So there's that.
Yeah.
But either way, thanks to all of you for stopping by. Tomorrow we're going to go through the SEC, I believe.
Yep.
So stay tuned for that. And until then, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.